And now we're going to talk about validating your idea. We all have ideas, and most of the time we love our ideas. But the truth is, not all ideas are valid. The other thing is the fact that an idea might be valid, but it might just not necessarily be viable because there's no market for it. So, in two scenarios, you might have a great idea, but there's no market. In another scenario, you might have a market, but a bad idea. So, the goal of idea validation is to ensure that we take our idea through a rigorous process to validate it and ensure that at the end of the day, we have an idea that's worth prototyping and taking to the market. So, what are some of the ways we can validate our ideas? The first is through the use of surveys, and this is just a set of questions that are open ended, not closed. And one thing to look out for is biases. So, for example, if I wanted to launch a new line of chocolate ice cream, and in my survey, I had a question that went, do you like chocolate flavored ice cream or do you prefer pistachio flavored ice cream? That's already a question that's leading because it suggests that the user likes either one or the other. But then an open question could be, what do you think about ice cream? And then depending on how open you want to make it, it could be, do you like ice cream? What flavor do you like? Or it could be, rank these flavors in order of preference. So the goal at the end of the day is to ask questions that are open-ended so that we can get as much feedback as we can from the users. Another way to validate your idea is through the use of focus groups. So with surveys, it's more of one-on-one interaction with your users, but then focus groups are in a group, and what that means is you can get qualitative data. So whereas with surveys, you have a lot of quantitative data because you can send one survey out to 100 users and have them fill it. The advantage of focus groups is in the fact that you can get more in-depth conversations and insights from your users. So another way to validate your idea is by employing the use of focus groups. Another sort of combination, I would say, of surveys and focus groups would be interviews. They're also really good for getting qualitative feedback, but interviews are usually one-on-one, whereas focus groups, you have like a group of 5 to 10 people in a room. The recommended size as well for focus groups is ideally about 5 to 7 people, but you definitely don't want to go above 10 people because then it's just hard to manage the group, but also the fact that some people might end up not contributing to the conversation because there's just not enough time for everyone to contribute. And so what are the things that you should focus on when you're validating your idea? So the first thing to focus on is the problem. So you need to understand and refine what the problem is. And like we mentioned, this is by doing your research and crafting questions that would lead your users to tell you more about what the pain exactly it is that they're suffering or going through. And then the second is figuring out why it is important to solve that problem. And what we're trying to identify here is the value. Not all problems need solving, surprise, surprise. And for example, so to give an example, imagine I wanted to start a business because the problem was I identified that there are not a lot of chewable pens out there. Now that's a valid problem because it exists, and I have an idea to create a chewable pen. But the question is, does the market really need a chewable pen? And so understanding what exactly the problem is and what the value that problem will provide to the user at the idea validation stage is important because it saves you from doing a lot of work and investing a lot of time and resources in creating a solution that hasn't even been validated. And then the next is understanding the people that are affected by this problem. And so here what you want to look out for is the size of your market. In my chewable pen example, for instance, maybe only 1 in 1 million people are affected by this problem. And so I have to decide as a business owner whether this is worth building a product for. You also want to, at this point, understand the state of the art. And the state of the art is basically anything that currently is a substitute for solving the problem. So just to recap, you want to figure out what the problem is. ensure that you have a clearly defined problem. And one way to do this is by crafting questions, open-ended questions that will provide a lot of input and insights from the users. The second is to answer the question of why. Why is this problem important to solve? What exactly is the pain it's causing users, and what's the corresponding value that a solution will provide to them? And then the third is understanding the people that are affected by this problem, because you want to be sure that you have a market that's large enough to be addressed by your solution.